Do you mind?
So good morning, council members, state officials and representatives and members of the public. Welcome to the March 4th, 2025 meeting of the Social Equity Council. Calling this meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. I will call the roll. Councilor Abercrombie.
Here.
Councilor Beeman. Councilor Betts.
Present.
Councilor Borges.
Present.
Here. Councilor Davis.
Present.
Councilor Gaddis.
Here.
Councilor Hawkins.
Present.
Councilor Jefferson will be joining us. Councilor Karpowitz. Councilor Medina.
Present.
Councilor Name.
Present.
Councilor Shirley.
Present.
Councilor Skyers Thomas. Councilor Valeries.
Present.
Councilor Venator. Councilor Walton.
Present.
We have a quorum. Our first item on the agenda is executive session. However, I've been advised by the executive director that there are no issues to discuss today, correct?
You're correct, Madam Chair.
All righty. So with that, we will move on to our second agenda item, which is approval of the February 4th, 2025 meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Next is on the agenda are committee updates. Just as a reminder to the public that our committees are now meeting quarterly. But that said, if any of our committee chairs have reports to provide, I welcome that. I am hearing, oh, Councilor Hawkins, morning.
Good morning. Good morning. As co-chair of the Strategic Planning Committee, I would like to bring to this body that we have had some conversations about the frequency of the meetings for our strategic planning work. And we feel like we've made really good progress in terms of having built out a strategic plan and following some of that or all of the plan, but following that through to completion. So we would like to move the strategic planning updates to ad hoc as needed if anything changes on the strategic plan. So what we have asked of Director McGee is that he include an update in his quarterly phase update on the progress of the strategic plan. And so we are bringing this to the council for discussion and for a motion to move the strategic planning meetings to ad hoc with the updates for the strategic plan being in the regular report from the organization quarterly.
Thank you for that. So I am actually going to ask our council and or our parliamentarian, Councilor Gaddis, because that is not a motion on the agenda, if I could get some clarity on the process to allow for that.
Two things, Madam Chairwoman. Number
Yes.
one, I don't think it requires a motion anyway.
Okay.
And so we could start and stop there. It's kind of an internal procedural thing. As they need to meet, they'll come together like Voltron. Thank you.
Many thanks. Thank you very much. Okay. So, great. So you all can carry on.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to the committee.
Anything else? I do note that Councilor Skyers Thomas and Councilor Karpowitz have joined us. So good morning. If there are no other committee updates, I will move on to our SEC updates and turn it over to Director McGee, who will provide context in that area and introduce our special guest.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. And happy Women's Month to all of the amazing females that make up the Social Equity Council. Thank y'all so much for your work. Special shout out to my number one lady, and that is my mama. And then the second lady, my wife. Happy Women's Month and happy March. So there is still no elevator to success. Might I remind everybody, we have to take the stairs. And we do so every single day here at the SEC. Not always, a bed of flowery lavender, but it is definitely moving toward success and progress. So the leadership team continues alongside our staff and with our council members to align programs. By way of information sharing, the agency, that is the SEC, has two open recruitments, that being a staff attorney and a research analyst. I believe many of our council members, if not all, and the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, not limited to, have been in receipt of those job postings. Please continue to share those postings with your networks. As you all are very aware, our strategic plan really helped us to hone in on the importance of program expertise and supporting our reimagined programs that we administer. And again, these additions will help us to continue to move towards full implementation of the initiatives within the strategic plan. My updates will be extremely brief. As you all are aware, we do have a special guest from the Department of Consumer Protection, our regulators who help us with this work. And it's been an extreme pleasure to work alongside them, but also have very colorful conversation regarding the work that we administer. So Christina, if we can just make sure Roderick is in the room, you and Georgette, that'll be great.
He's on the attendee list. He just needs to be moved over to a panelist.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Madi, if you can bring up the presentation, that'll be great. Okay, next slide. So my updates will include, obviously, our mission and our vision. Make sure everybody understands, our mission is essentially to promote equitable economic prosperity by supporting social equity entrepreneurs and reinvesting in the communities most impacted by the war on drugs. And I know y'all saying, Brandon, you read it every time. Yes, it is what guides our work. And it is important that we're constantly reminding ourselves why we are here. Our vision, we essentially want to see all of these communities hardest hit by the war on drugs thrive, and we want to see them prosperous. Next slide. All right, so I'll go over our financial summaries, a legislative affairs update, our SEC loan program. Madam Chair has already underscored the importance of our council committee calendar, but I'll speak to it again. And then lastly, our enhanced social equity plan with a focus on the criteria and rubric. Next slide. Here you'll see our expenditures for the month of February. You'll see our personnel services. That includes our fringe benefits for 9 current full-time employees, ending the month off at $80,704.17. Other expenses that includes contracts, agreements, etc., around $51,502.54, ending off with a total of $132,206.61. And again, I think it's also important just for the general public. As you all know, our meetings are public. We still have in our fiscal year 25 budget a line item of $5.6 million earmarked for our community reinvestment program, which is referred to as the R2, Revitalize and Reimagine. And then lastly, we have our loan program, and you see those numbers there. Nothing has changed since our last convening. in person at the state capitol. I will pause just for a minute just to yield through you, Madam Chair, any questions that many of our counselors might have regarding our financial summary for the month of February.
I do not see any hands.
Awesome. Okay, moving right along, I do want to provide some updates on our legislative affairs. You all know that we are in the thick of the 2025 legislative session. We have a couple bills that we are in support of. Chief among them is our agency bill, of which Christina and the legislative committee will elaborate a little bit more on during the time they meet. But we're actively meeting and monitoring all ledge bills and preparing testimonies as needed. Just last week, I was able to testify before the Appropriations and General Law committees. Specifically within appropriations, we have been in support of the governor's proposed recommendation, and that is to move the SEC's fund off of the books, if you would, to establish the fund, the Social Equity Innovation Fund, so that we're better aligned with the original intent of the SEC's legislation. It'll do a couple things, y'all. It'll allow us to move a bit more nimbly in terms of supporting our programs. It does not mean there is a lack of transparency or we're not following procurement laws and rules, because guess what? We're still subjected to state audits. We still have oversight by our council that is made up of you all. We will still present, if this bill goes through, present before the legislature's Appropriations Committee. We still would be subject to quarterly reports to the legislature, as well as monthly reports to the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. Again, the intent of this proposal is to really allow us to do our work a bit more freely in that we are able to adjust our programs to meet the needs of our intended audience. Moving on to our loan program, I do want to take a moment to thank Committee Chair Avery Gaddis, Fanita Borges, Ed Shirley, and our financial partners who have been meeting with us on a regular basis, obviously to talk through our finances, but really to hone in on reimagining this loan program. From my perspective, you all, it's been a challenge in that we have had upwards of a dozen or more applications sitting in a loan pipeline for the last 2.5 years. Our team, as of late, we've been meeting with each and every one of those applicants to better ascertain what would be a plan to help get them across the finish line. Not every single applicant will make it across the finish line for various reasons, given the current design of the loan program. And so while we have an underwriting process, thank you to the Department of Economic and Community Development, we also have our loan advisory committee that are made up of folks with financial business background and loans. Some of them don't make it, and I'm going to say that out loud. There are a lot of our applicants who, feel the need to lobby and advocate, which I appreciate, outside stakeholders with not all the information, okay? And so I want to say this publicly so that everybody can hear that we are working alongside each and every social equity entrepreneur to ensure that they are supported 100%, but we're also responsible for taxpayer dollars. And that means we have a system in place. We want to design a program that supports social equity entrepreneurs where they are with accountability. That also means that everybody doesn't fit the bill. That means we need to take a look at your design, your business plans, to ensure that you can actually make your payments. So there's a lot of conversation there. We will continue to meet. Any counselors who are interested in joining the finance committee, any folks who are interested in learning a bit more about the Reimagine Loan Program, feel free to reach out to myself and Counselor Gaddis. Madam Chair?
Yes. Counselor
I
Gaddis.
think Avery had his
Yes,
hands up.
Counselor Gaddis.
Thank you for the indulgence, Madam Chairwoman. Brandon, thanks for your words, but I have a growing concern about the sheer number of calls and emails we're starting to receive from elected officials who were prompted by applicants who, for whatever reason, did not receive, $500,000 of the money that they applied to the Cannabis Revolving Loan Fund. And it's a little concerning because, Ed Shirley, Finita Borges, myself, and Councilman Borges actually brought in some personnel from Liberty Bank to help us out with some processes and systems. And we spend a lot of time making sure we look at these loans through a very objective lens, that we apply sound fundamentals to the underwriting process, helping out our colleagues at DECD. They do a great job at DECD. And candidly speaking, because I can't say any names, but some of these clients who feel entitled to just get $500,000 simply because they feel that they can, some of these applications are really, really jacked up. Some of these folks don't deserve a penny. And we do a very good job to document that, to articulate that. But I got to tell you, Executive Director McGee, my patience with these elected officials flirting with, our underwriting process and what we do, my tolerance is running its course. And at some point, I'm going to have meetings with people too. I don't think that elected officials should try or attempt to put their thumb on the scale when we're talking about a $50 million loan program. And it's kind of concerning to me. So I wanted to know from you, from your vantage point, are you doing anything to have these conversations with, the governor's office, the 4 caucus or 6 caucus leaders about, what we're doing, and the fact that we do know what we're doing, and we don't need, it doesn't help us when a half a dozen to a dozen elected officials are calling you, myself, anyone in your staff, trying to have meetings to get us to change our minds, that we have an applicant who the original loan was for $500,000. We really had a lot of issues with it, and we said, fine, we'll give you $250,000. Come back to us, recalibrate your uses and sources of funds to make sure that the business is still viable with 50% less than what you asked for. And now we have a bunch of politicals calling everybody, and that's really no bueno. So I just want to hear from you, Executive Director McGee. How should we handle this? What is your plan to handle that? Because again, my tolerance for the phone calls is running very thin. I could be a little aggressive at times. I'm trying to play nice and be Henry Kissinger, but my diplomacy is running its course. So help me out. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Counselor Gaddis. And you took the words out of my mouth. My patience is not running thin, but it is almost there. And I am equally eager to ensure that social equity entrepreneurs receive the support that they need likewise. And I'm sure you believe that as well. But one of the things that we've been doing in short order is, as Michelle Obama would say, take the high road. And we know that we have been realigning, with the help of all of our counselors, realign this organization to better adhere to the statute, its mission, vision, and the program designs that we administer. Now, that said, we're constantly having to remind many of our elected officials that we have a program. And we have eligibility requirements. And we also recognize that many of these businesses, there are a lot of pain points and there were a lot of promises made that we did not live up to. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We put the cart before the horse when we designed this loan program, and we did not ensure that education, awareness, and resources at the front end of the entrepreneur's journey with SEC was adhered to. We didn't do that. And so here we are today. And to your point, there are several offenders who believe that they are just entitled, to the dollars that we have here at the SEC just because. And so I am of the mindset that we keep our front door open. We meet with as many of our elected officials, of which we've been doing. We take every single social equity entrepreneurs' inquiries case by case, and we just work it from there. So I appreciate your comments, Counselor, and we'll continue to work alongside these folks. But in short order, we are hiring a program loan manager with the help of Fanita and you, Avery, and Ed Shirley, drafting our job spec so that we can hire the appropriate staff to support that program.
Thank you, Executive Director McGee. And I just want to say publicly, I am glad you are in that seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gaddis. And just to add on, because I do think, Councilor Gaddis, your point is well taken, and Director McGee, I appreciate your willingness to create space in this situation. I think it's important to state two things. There are some folks, to your point, who feel like because they are in this process that they are automatically entitled to access the funds. There has been conversations around whether or not there were commitments that if you took A, B, and C step, you would automatically be approved for a loan, which brings me to point two. We are talking about taxpayer dollars, and we have to be good fiscal stewards of those dollars. And so for anyone out there listening who thinks that, you just show up and we're just going to hand it to you, that is not, that would be irresponsible as representatives of a state body. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Medina has his hand raised.
Yes, Councilor Medina.
Through you, Madam Chair, I had a question for my own benefit. The loan applications receive formal denial letters, and with denial letters, reasons, and I'm assuming guidance on how to present an application in good standing the next time around. Just as a question, I wasn't sure.
Yes, that's a great question. I'll yield to you, Councilor Gaddis.
A couple of things. Yes, there is a formal denial process that both the SEC and DECD engages in. As far as your last point about how to make the application better, there is a feature in statutes known as lender liability. We are not in the business of hand-holding applicants to help them to make their application better. Here's why. Let's game that out. We help them to make their application better. It goes to underwriting, where we look at the ability to repay back the loan. We look at collateral and certain assets, et cetera. And we look at the character of the applicant and their capacity to execute their business plan as detailed in the business plan that they give us and the documents that they give us. Now, if we go and we help them, but then we deny them, we have a conflict problem. So I will say this, that the folks at the table are very professional, very credentialed. They've been doing this a very long time. And it's not a situation that we run by the seat of our pants. And Executive Director McGee, at any time you need me to sit with you and have audience with someone who wants us to explain how we go about evaluating these loans for soundness, I would make myself available and be happy to do that. But Councilman Medina, yes, we do follow-up, constant follow-up. We make sure we cross the T's and dot the I's. We have our own rock star general counsel at the SEC, and then DECD has their people, and together as a village, we make sure, as the council, the chairwoman said, to be good stewards of taxpayer resources. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So just moving right along, because I want to lend some time to Roderick Marriott from DECD. Really quickly, again, our committee calendar is effective. Staff will be reaching out to each of the chairpersons to draft our agenda. Our upcoming meetings we have, as you see listed there, is our Policy Governance Committee on the 20th of this month, followed by Finance on the same day, and then our Legislative Affairs Committee on March 26th. All those meetings are virtual and open to the public, so you all are welcome to attend. Lastly, I think what is extremely also important is that you all will receive a memo clarifying all of the enhancements made to the social equity plan. That includes the criteria and rubric. As you all remember, within the comptroller's examination, one of the recommendations was to enhance our criteria and rubric to better assist social equity applicants during their license process. And so we've done that. A special shout out to Cesar and the team, really working hard to clarify all of the rubrics and the criteria. We've since met with our social equity entrepreneurs and have also met with the comptroller's office to ensure that they receive those updates as well. Next slide. All right, just to remind y'all, we are still working within our roadmap here. This constantly drives our work, and we have identified resources and needs on the right of the screen. We're still working within each quarter, so we're ahead in many areas, and I just wanted to ensure the council that our strategic plan and roadmap continues to guide our work. Next slide. All right, we have our monthly meetings. You all are welcome to attend. Special shout out to Andrea Hawkins. She joined us last month. Thank you so much. I am going to make this competitive as possible. I want to see as many of our council members joining us to meet and greet our social equity entrepreneurs each month. It's virtual. I will say we have more who attend our afternoon meetings than our evening meetings, so the choice is yours. And of course, we still have our open office hours. You all are welcome to visit us here at the SEC. I think that's it. We can drop the screen. I do want to say thank you to Madam Chair and the rest of the council for all of your continued support, your patience with the council and our staff. We're still working toward our mission and also rebuilding our workforce and our community reinvestment programs. So at this point, Roderick, thank you so much, man, for joining us. Our counselors have been in receipt of some data on some comparison data between our sister states regarding trends within the industry. But we figured we wanted someone who's smart on this stuff. Well, actually, Cesar is a bit smarter, but smart on this stuff to help us better understand what's going on. And we don't always have to compare Connecticut to everybody, but I think to have these conversations are extremely important. So we're glad to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Chairperson Comer and the entire council. It's been a while since I've seen you all, but it is good to be back. And I do have a slide presentation prepared, but I do want to start to say it's really particularly great to be part of a meeting where there's a Voltron reference. So I really want to thank you for that. And And so with that, I'm going to start to share my presentation. So just bear with me 1 second. And for the beginning part, I'm really going to focus on just kind of the program and a little bit of its roadmap, and then kind of work from there. Can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So my date was a little off there on my front screen. I apologize for that, but here's a bit of our timeline. So obviously the WIRACA was started in 2021 for us, and we've kind of gone through this the slow build into this program. So in July it was fully in effect, at least as far as the law was concerned. But our first license applications posted in February 3rd of 2022, and our first deadline was May 3rd of 2022. Our first sale, and we kind of moved through social equity approvals, and that first one of those was July 19th. December 23rd, we completed all of the lottery processes, and we officially opened our adult use market in January 10th of 2023. So we're a little over 2 years into our program, and it's got a lot of moving parts to it, and each year the legislature takes up new ideas and new things to help our market behave in the way that they expect. As a general kind of concept, these are the different categories of licensure that we have here. Apologies. So we have kind of growers, we have cultivators, micro cultivators, and producers. The real difference here is that the producers are part of the legacy market from the medical marijuana market. Cultivators are all new licensees, and micro cultivators as well. There's an intermediate tier, we kind of call it, is the manufacturing level. It has product manufacturers and food and beverage manufacturers and product packagers. And then there's kind of the sales level. And that tier has retailers, hybrid retailers, which are allowed to sell to medical and adult use customers. And then there's just a dispensary that's medical only. And then we have two types of delivery or transportation credentials. One is delivery direct to consumer. That's a delivery service. And there's transporter that delivers between our licensed entities. So cultivators have some very specific rules, and really we've never done a lottery for cultivators. It was all based on the Section 149 cultivation, and that was I had 41 applications, and a number of those are still in process today. They're allowed to serve both markets. They have a floor for grow space when they start, so it's 15,000 square feet. They are permitted to have up to 2 equity joint ventures. They don't have to open any in particular. They may apply for expansion of their grow space, so they can continue to add grow space the current cap is 250,000 square feet. They are not permitted to sell direct to consumer. They have to have specific location requirements, and that is an area that has changed over time in the legislation. These folks now have one of the newer changes for these applicants is that they have to move forward by December 31st of 2025. There is no expiration date for a provisional license, and there's a $3 million fee to move forward to provisional. So obviously that's a big fee, and so the provisional doesn't have an expiration because of that. And so I believe it's just one of those that is open thus far. Then we have micro cultivators, which are kind of like a smaller cultivation. Their starting size has to be between 2,000 and 10,000 square feet. They can apply for expansion in increments of up to 5,000, with a cap of 25,000 total. They're permitted to have equity joint ventures for those that were kind of actually, it's the equity joint venture is only permissible. I apologize. It does get there's a lot of confusion in these because it's a complex structure that we've created here. But for those that have converted from a DIA cultivator, which is a new pathway as well, if you were applied and permitted to move forward as a DIA or a Section 149 cultivator, you could apply to convert your license to a micro cultivator for a reduced fee, as long as you haven't paid the provisional fee. So it's $500,000, and then you can add for another $500,000 an equity joint venture. There are no requirements for DIA location for the micros, and they have a provisional license that expires. In the lottery, you see that they have a lottery fee of $250, provisional license fee of $1,000, and a final license fee of $5,000. And then the producers are legacy market, as I explained before. They were permitted to have equity joint ventures up to 2. And if they committed to that, they could receive a reduction in the conversion fee from $3 million to $1.5 million. And so in this manufacturing tier here is it's kind of, this kind of highlights what the differences are. A product manufacturer can pretty much do everything. The food and beverage is, as you would imagine, limited to things that you consume that are food and beverage, and then product packagers. But in the last few sessions, they've added this expansion to allow them to expand into these other types. So a packager can expand into a manufacturer, and food and beverage can expand into a manufacturer. And this allows them to maybe create their own precursor ingredients, so concentrates and things like that. And here are the different kind of retailing type establishments. There's only one dispensary that is not converted to the adult use market at this time, so 17 of them have. And we have a number of retailers operational. I have some more data on that coming forward. And then there's delivery services, as we explained a little bit earlier. They're allowed to deliver to both medical and adult use consumers, and it has to start from a medical or hybrid facility, and the transporters are kind of business to business, generally more bulk transportation. So we had a number of different licensing pathways, and even that has kind of changed over the last few years. So some folks were allowed to convert from our legacy market into the adult use market. That's really kind of our dispensaries and our producers. We had a lottery pathway that allowed for kind of a split path for social equity, which was a first credential, or the first kind of people selected were social equity applicants that I self-identified as such, and then were validated later by the council and the team at DECD. And then the general lottery would follow after that. And like I said earlier, we did not hold a lottery for a cultivator because of the DIA cultivator option. Then there was these equity joint ventures, which started as this pathway that allowed for that had to be 50% owned and controlled by an individual or individuals who qualified as social equity applicants. There was the DIA cultivator, which I kind of referenced earlier. They had a one-time 3-month application window and a $3 million fee to participate in it, which subsequently got changed to this new micro cultivator pathway. And then we had these social equity partnerships and the business and the partnering. I had to partner with, excuse me. They had to partner with a producer and was at least 65% owned and controlled by an individual. We've not seen a lot of social equity partnerships transpire. So our general process, the primary pathway, or the most kind of regular pathway, really is through the lottery path. We enter a lottery, we draw for the social equity lottery first, and then those applications get screened for social equity criteria. And that is a big undertaking, depending on how many applications we have. And we have a lottery that would be special for each individual credential type and associated fees. Once you do that, you kind of get through and you go on to provisional. You have 60 days to apply for that provisional. The equity joint venture pathway still exists. There are some businesses that still have opportunities to have equity joint venture applications, and we had that kind of that DIA and cultivator application, and now the conversion to a micro cultivator option. At provisional license, generally applicants have been approved in certain criteria. So if it's a social equity applicant, they've got an approval from the Social Equity Council. and the team at DECD under Brandon to that they meet the criteria for social equity. And then there's a background check to make sure that they haven't hit a very specific set of violations in our law. And in the last, I think year or so, we just got permission to do a fingerprint supported background check, which should expedite the timeline and reduce costs for our applicants. But that that language has a bunch of checks that have to go in through the FBI as well before we can do it. So the provisional, you have 60 days from approval of the initial application to become provisional, and then provisional allows you to kind of proceed, and you don't really have to have a location up until that point, until we start to physically inspect you from the division. And there was originally a 14-month expiration on that, but they expanded that to 24 months in subsequent years. And then you have to submit for a final license application, and usually in that timeline, we're looking for a number of different documents that are required by statute. Agreement with the seat to sale tracking vendor, and like all your social equity plans should be in. We really encourage all of our applicants to get the provisional to start submitting any documents to the Social Equity Council that for approval that are required, because we want this to be smooth for our applicants. And the Brandon's team has been really great at responding to these individuals lately and helping them get through this process, providing clear feedback and getting these applications or these documents approved. But we ask all of our applicants to submit those as early as they possibly can once they know their geographic location, so that isn't the final hurdle at the end of the game. Because when these applications expire, they expire. We don't have recourse to manage that after. And so we don't want any of these types of things that are really clearly manageable up front to hold them up. But prior to filing a license, my team, who works very hard to help our applicants get approved and stay on track, is providing up to 5. We say 5, but we are inspecting people at a very, very high rate. Probably more than we've ever seen for any other credential we've ever issued in at least in the drug control division. I can't speak for others. But we generally offer a minimum of 5 inspections, a 0%, so we can kind of see what your original place looks like. 25% is roughly when you don't have sheetrock up to make sure the security looks good. 50% is usually kind of around when your secure area is being developed. So that's the area of your facility where you're going to store the majority of your bulk cannabis, not in active use. 75% is when we start to see those camera overlays. And then, that last 100% inspection that gets you kind of across the finish line is really the one statutorily mandated one where your security has to be operational. You basically have to be able to open that building and receive cannabis into your facility with some kind of reasonable security expectations and more. But so we're doing that for all of these folks, and it's been a ton of work because we're right now at that point where a lot of these credentials are starting to expire or getting up against these deadlines. And we've seen some people not proceed at all. And we've worked really hard to help those that have put in good effort get across the finish line. We're working really hard to help people with that. But it is a ton of work on our team. So this slide kind of summarizes where we are now. So we have our 4 kind of, we call them legacy, but our producers. We have 2 DIA cultivators, 12 that are in provisional licensure, 2 that are operational now. 1 is newly operational and probably just has kind of some immature plants in the process. We have that 1 dispensary left. We have 33 hybrids. 7, and there you see the breakdown there, and there's 3 are in our provisional, and those are all EJVs. We have 33 retailers that are AUC only, and we have 9 food and beverage, 2 or 3 product manufacturers, 1 packager, 11 delivery services that are approved for transporters, and 2 testing labs. And it's really important that we have some competition throughout our market, right? A healthy market has good competition everywhere from our testing labs to our delivery services to our growers and so on and so forth. So one of our best resources, and a big shout out to Diana and Caitlin, who have done a ton of work on our website. We continue to hone it and put new data up on that website and enhance our data sets. You can search for some of our retailing establishments on this map here. It's more interactive. As you zoom in, you'll get kind of different dispersions there. So this does two things. It helps our businesses as new businesses come online choose where they may want to try to operate so that they're not struggling with too much competition, but it also allows people to find cannabis places that are licensed here and helps us to perhaps compete against the illicit market of cannabis products in some of our stores.
Hey, Rod, quick question for you. Because some of this information we pulled from your site last month to share with the council.
Mm-hmm.
Could you, just from your perspective, give us a bit of insight on, what's happening in the market within the state of Connecticut and maybe some things we should be thinking about as the Social Equity Council? Not so much, the sales and the data that we shared with the council last month, but maybe just from your perspective as, a person in this space and familiar with the work that we're doing.
Sure. I think right now the market itself probably needs a little more supply diversity, and we're seeing that, but that takes time, right? Supply isn't something that kind of comes up quickly. Getting your facility, these facilities are big. No matter if they're indoor or outdoor, they're usually large areas. There's a large capital investment for those places. Especially the indoor facilities have a particularly high capital, both in their the land that they're in, the operations and the maintenance of those facilities is really, really critical. And so what we're seeing is that those are starting to come online a little bit more now, and that should help really our market kind of grow. I think from your perspective, I think the council in recent time has done a great job kind of moving the application processes forward for the social equity plans and things of that nature. I think that the businesses are struggling a little bit with the finances. The access to capital does remain a challenge for new businesses in this plan. I've heard you guys talk a lot about your loan program, which I think sounds like it has a really robust structure around it, which is great. And as that money is provided to qualified applicants, I think it really will help the market and allow them to be competitive. The concern is, one of the big concerns we see when we look at other states is that a more mature market like Massachusetts really had their prices fall very rapidly when our market got approved. So you can actually look at that on a map and show that price is dropping, and that causes us to have a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah.
Applicants.
And I mean, just to be clear, I know you all are the regulators, so I'm not asking you to promote anything. I think for us, and nor am I putting words in your mouth, I'm just saying that for the ether here. Our goal in this is to ensure that the SEC, we're working smart, we're working hard, and we're ensuring that our social equity entrepreneurs are equipped, for this business. And if they're not, let's figure out a different business for them to enter into. I don't know how many slides you have, but I am mindful of the time.
This kind of the price one is the last kind of real one, and this is our contact information.
Oh, sweet.
And so I guess, I think that one of the big things that is really challenging for participants in this market is that it's, depending on which tier you're actively working in, it requires a lot of work, and it requires a lot of understanding and patience. And I think some folks, kind of like what you guys were saying earlier, felt like some of these kind of lottery winnings were a golden ticket, but a winning lottery ticket automatically. And I think they the work that is required to go into these businesses is sometimes underestimated. There is a lot of compliance required for these individuals, and it is a competitive market, whether it's competing against the black market, the Massachusetts market, the New York market, depending on where you are geographically, it all plays a role. And it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to yield back the time to Madam Chair, just to open up the floor if any members of our council have any questions for Roderick or even your team. Y'all came deep today, man. You got a bunch of DCP on. So I don't know. And I know we have our own Shirley Skyers Thomas also on our board. Thank you so much for your support.
Yes,
Madam Chair.
Yes, I see a couple of hands. So Councillor Hawkins.
I was just wondering if the presentation that's shared today could be shared with us.
Yeah, we can share those. We'll PDF it and send
Yeah,
it.
if you send it to me, I'll send it out as a follow-up with my deck.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Walton.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Some things that I learned and forgot. I guess the question goes back to the pricing, and having seen the article a couple of weeks ago, and then kind of get an understanding, hearing people talk about their desire to go across the border price wise. Is that, and if I missed it, forgive me, but is there a way that we can, or a strategy for us to attempt to kind of dig into that market and stop people from crossing the border and visiting other places?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging question. I believe that price is the biggest driver right now, and really, when you look at the economics of that, it's a supply and demand issue. We do have more supply coming online. That the newest DIA cultivator should impact that. We have a number of micro cultivators that are really just getting their feet under them in this market. It takes a little time to learn how to operate your facility as well. When you kind of first start a facility, you're just balancing the air inside your facility can impact kind of how your plant grows. It can impact how your yield is, and all of that eventually trickles into our market pricing, and which we see is starting to slide down towards the Massachusetts price. That's the one we use as our barometer right now, because that is the most mature market in the state. But we also want to balance oversupply and having too much of the supply get pushed out, and if that price collapses too much, it becomes really hard to be a viable business. So trying to do that in the right way is a tricky balance, and so we don't want to put the cart before the horse there. So I think time will start to make that happen as these new businesses get kind of going and get efficient.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Shirley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I follow the presentation, and thank you, it's very informative. You said that the market could require some supply, but at the same time, you're saying that the pricing dropped in Massachusetts. So I'm trying to get some understanding of those two things. It sounds to me as if the prices dropped in Massachusetts in anticipation of competition rather than because of oversupply.
Well, it's a good point. It's hard to predict exactly why the prices dropped in Massachusetts, but there was a precipitous drop in the price of cannabis in Massachusetts right around the time that our market launched. And so you could argue that is a new supply. You could argue that that's new competition. It's hard to really say which one it is, but we do know that we've seen closures in Massachusetts, after our market kind of became live and active. And there has been concerns reported in Massachusetts at times about their supply totals and how much supply they have. And when that price gets too low, multiple businesses start to fail in up and down the supply chain.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not see any more hands. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, again, I echo the council and Director McGee's thanks to you, Director Marriott, and your team for this information. And actually do look forward to seeing that presentation because I think there's a lot of context that people will want to reread and digest. So thanks in advance for sending that over. So you're welcome to stay on and continue to participate in our party. But we're gonna move on since I don't see any other hands.
Thank you for having me, and the deck will be over shortly. And we are adding some of these data points we've shared here into our open data and into our general kind of data we've been publishing out. It's valuable information, and getting it to the public is important.
Fantastic. Thank you again. And so while we're in gratitude mode, I just wanted to take a quick moment and share an email that we received from Senator Pat Miller, who is President Pro Tem and Banking Committee Chair, but had been the esteemed chair of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. And she writes, and this is to our director, I want to take a moment to thank you for your outstanding leadership in turning SEC around during your brief tenure as executive director. One of the major concerns with SEC had been the lengthy approval process for plans, which hindered applicants from launching their businesses. It's encouraging to see that the longest wait time between DCP and SEC approvals was just 18 days, as reported in the March report. It appears your efforts are transforming the program, making a meaningful impact on the organization and the people it serves. I look forward to seeing SEC's continued success under your leadership. And all of the council was on that, but I wanted to make sure for folks who didn't see it that they heard it. I think folks who have been watching us for a while know that our process has been transformative and our journey has been transformative, and I think that's a real testament to Director McGee's leadership. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that, and excited for our future progress. So that's my good of the order. Is there anything else for the good of the order? And if not, then I turn it, oh, sorry, yes, Councilor Jefferson.
Yeah, just, you know, I missed the roll call, so I just want the record to reflect my presence at today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jefferson, as well as Councilor Beaman. I see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, a very good, efficient meeting, very informative. If there's no further business, I move to adjourn.
Second motion.
Thank you all. Any discussion or not approval? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
everyone. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
So